Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the show that's sweeping the nation, at least in my own opinion. Zoom from Miles' room. I'm Dave Azer, and joining me today is a good friend, a good person, a good doctor, and a good chef. And what else could you possibly want? Dr. Sonali Ruder is here. She's an ER doc, and she's also the Foodie Physician. How are you, Sonali?
Great. I'm great. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well. You know, for the first time viewers of the show, my 3-month-old son, he's going to be 3 in a few days. I don't want to rush it, but he allowed me to convert his bedroom into a recording studio of sorts. So as always, thank you, Miles. Appreciate it.
Excellent. I love it. It's a double picture in the back.
Yeah, you know, he's here in spirit. So, you know, he's in the next room and maybe he'll make an appearance, but he's always here looking over my shoulder, probably for the rest of my life. How are you and your wonderful family?
I'm good. I'd taken a little bit of a break recently because I had a baby as well, a baby boy, Luca, and he actually just turned 1, which is crazy. The whole first year went by in a whirlwind, and it was fun and it was exciting, and now I'm starting to kind of get back into cooking. And now with, quarantine, there's been lots of time for cooking. I think a lot of people have been cooking at home.
Yes, and a lot of time for eating too. All right. So what we're going to do is we are on Zoom and we're simulcasting on Facebook Live. So periodically, I'm just going to check my phone for questions. So if you're watching now, okay, I see the chat's up right now. People are watching. Good to see you all. If you're watching and you have a question about medicine or food or both together, Dr. Ruder is an expert in both, and she's going to answer your questions. And by the way, how could we have gone 2 minutes without mentioning you also have prepared some dishes, which we'll get to in a bit. Yes. Don't want to give them away yet, but are you excited about what you're going to be sharing with our audience?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I never show up empty-handed, so yes, I have 8 delicious dishes that I'm going to be sharing today.
It's just a bummer that we're not doing this in person, selfishly for me, because last time I interviewed you in a TV studio, I got to eat all of the good stuff.
That's right. Well, I will taste them and describe how good they are to you, Dave, as I eat them.
Yeah, that's not quite the same for me, but okay. That's fine. Okay, so get these questions coming, by the way. Dr. Sonali Ruder, if you're just tuning in, people are tuning in now, an ER doctor. We can talk about COVID, and we will. And she's also a chef. She's written multiple cookbooks. She's got meals prepared for us. We can talk about that too. So fire away with your questions. The first question is, how did you go, for people who don't know much about you, from an ER doctor to the Foodie Physician? What happened there?
Yes, so this happened probably about 15 years ago now. It's been a long time. I was already a doctor. I finished medical school, and I was doing my training in New York City in emergency medicine. And I got hooked on cooking shows on TV. I just started watching them obsessively. I think you're familiar with that.
Yes.
And one day I discovered I was kind of good at it. And one day I just entered a cooking competition on TV. I didn't think I would win, but next thing I know, I got flown out to LA and I competed on a cooking show. And I didn't win, but I got hooked. And after that, I just started cooking and entering contests and doing really well. And then after a few years, I decided I wanted to go to culinary school. So for a year, I worked in the ER at Jacoby Medical Center, which is a big trauma center in the Bronx. And at night, I would go to culinary school 3 nights a week. And it was the most amazing year. Culinary school is so fun, and you get to take home everything that you make. So my husband Pete was very happy as well. And while I was in culinary school, I started my blog, which is called The Foodie Physician. And over the years, the blog has grown a lot, basically. And I started to bring my medical background into it. And basically, on the Foodie Physician, I post all of my own original recipes, healthy recipes. And I'm all about encouraging people to get in the kitchen and cook, because I really believe that that's one of the best ways to eat healthy and to lead a healthy lifestyle is to cook your own food.
And I want to ask you about the relationship between eating well and staying healthy, which we're going to get to. But I just want to go back. It's so different to a layman, medicine and food, operating on a human being and whipping up a dish in the kitchen. Are the skills at all the same? Do you analyze a body the same way you analyze a pan? I don't know.
I mean, a lot of cooking is actually very scientific and very precise, like baking in particular. You know, you have to be very precise with your measurements. And I definitely remember one of my culinary instructors telling me I was very good at like filleting a fish and things like that. But my knife skills were always like very on. But I actually think I got into the cooking because it was a good way to relieve the stress from the ER. Because, you know, residency training in emergency medicine, it's not an easy thing to do, to say the least. You know, you're working crazy hours and seeing a lot of sick people. And I would come home and that would be my way to de-stress, actually. I found it very relaxing to be in the kitchen and cutting and chopping and cooking. So it was my way of kind of like escaping the stress.
Were you ever in the ER operating on a patient and thinking, should I use cinnamon or thyme?
Yes, all the time.
Dr. Ruder, pay attention. Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. Yeah, in debate.
Talk to people. You know, people do actually ask sometimes about diet and what they should be eating. You know, we diagnose a lot of people with high blood pressure or diabetes. And I mean, actually in the ER, a lot of times we see people at the end stage of their diseases when they're having heart attacks and strokes. But we do also see patients that we're diagnosing early with high blood pressure and diabetes. And that's like when I get a chance to actually talk to them about things that they can do and the right foods that they can eat to try to prevent those diseases. Okay,
let's get into the relationship between those foods and staying healthy. But let's reset. If you're tuning in right now, welcome to another episode of Zoom from Miles' room. There he is right there. He looks thrilled.
Yes.
And doesn't he? Yeah. Our guest is Dr. Sonali Ruder. She's an ER doc, and she's also the Foodie Physician. She was just giving us a little bit about her backstory and how she developed a passion for food. So we've got her for a half an hour or so. She actually has some recipes that she's cooked up, some dishes. We're going to share those too. And again, this is about you guys, as always. So if you have questions about medicine and or about food, or both, ask away, ask them on Facebook, and I'll get them. And Lindsay, if you're watching, my wife's watching in one of the other rooms. If you can run in some questions for me too, that'd be great. Because as you probably know from being a doctor, when things go crazy, not to compare our two industries, but it's hard to host and produce and executive produce.
Of course. Wow. Of course.
It's just like surgery. It's the same thing, really. Come on. All right, let's talk about the relationship between food and health. Such a broad question, but if you want to give us some foods, give us some surprise foods if you can. Some foods that we may not think are good for us, but actually are. Like, what's a food that we should be eating more of that we don't think enough about?
I would say anything with omega-3 fatty acids. So, you know, most people, when you say omega-3s, think of seafood. And that is really good. That is one of the best sources, actually, of seafood. But then I got a lot of questions from people who don't eat fish or meat. So there's a lot of other vegetarian sources of omega-3 fatty acids. So I would say nuts are a great source: walnuts, almonds, avocados, flaxseed oil. All of these things are great sources of omega-3s.
Okay, and what about the opposite? Are there foods that we all eat that we think, oh, we're doing such a good job, it says low fat on the box, look at me, but really we're just doing terrible things to our body by eating these foods?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of those things, actually, and you know, a lot of it has to do with knowing how to read nutrition labels and things like that. You know, back in the day, we thought the low fat diet was a way to go. So then in the grocery store, all of a sudden we got tons of low fat products on the shelves: low fat cheese, low fat, you know, sour cream, low fat mayonnaise. But when you take out the fat, you have to replace it with something else to keep the same texture and consistency. So things like, you know, low fat mayonnaise, for example, it has less fat, but you're actually replacing it with sugar. So you're kind of swapping out one thing for another. And now we're learning that sugar is not that great for you. So, you know, we kind of learn, things change as research grows, you know, nutrition advice changes. But now the thinking with fat is not bad. All fats are not created equal. There's good fats and there's bad fats. And I'm a big believer in there's no like one size fits all approach to nutrition and health. You know, I don't think one approach works for everybody. I think you have to do what's best for you, and it has to be a lifestyle. You know, I'm not a big believer in fad diets. They're not meant to last in the long term. You might lose a few pounds at the beginning, but eventually you're going to gain it back. So whatever approach you use, I think it has to be a lifestyle choice. And besides eating, it also includes, you know, other things like staying very active, exercising, getting a lot of sleep, which is hard with a baby, you know, and I know, but you know, we do the best that we can. So.
I haven't slept in 3 weeks, so you know, whatever. So perfect. Actually, my baby, he's been sleeping much better, which is wonderful. And props to my wife for doing the vast majority of the overnight work. Thank you for that. I think that you know, food is so wonderful. Look, you fell in love with food too, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's been like the hardest part about trying to eat well is you're just, you know, theoretically giving up some of the things that taste so great, but to your point, you got to find a lifestyle that makes sense to you. So is there room in a healthy diet for, I don't know if the term is cheat day or cheat meal, but is there room to have some indulgences?
Definitely. I mean, there's kind of like a little rule of thumb, the 80-20 rule. A lot of nutritionists use that, where, you know, 80% of the time you're good, and then 20% of the time you indulge and have those little things that you want. You know, I'm a foodie. I love food. Like, you know, like you said, it brings pleasure. That's one of the greatest pleasures in life, is eating good food, and I don't want to deprive myself of that. So yeah, I think most of the time you do a good job, and then you know, you definitely have to have those splurge days where you eat your ice cream or your pizza or whatever, you know, whatever your little indulgence is. For me,
yeah, that sounds pretty good, actually. For you, it's what?
Fried chicken, macaroni and cheese.
Come on, great, so good, so good. Yes, please to that. I know that you've written some cookbooks, some like children's cookbooks, which is really cool.
Yeah, I have a few cookbooks. The ones that I have here today, I'll show you quickly. This is and they're backwards because my camera is turned, but this is a natural pregnancy cookbook, and this is natural baby food. And I wrote these actually when I was pregnant with my daughter, who's going to be 7 soon. So I was pregnant with her, and I wrote the pregnancy book, and then after I had her, I wrote the baby food book. And it's really the pregnancy book is basically, it's a collection of recipes. It's really not just for pregnant women, to be honest. I mean, it has extra nutrients that you need in pregnancy, like folate and calcium and vitamin D and things like that. But it's really a good cookbook for anyone that's trying to follow a healthier diet. And then the baby food book starts with baby purees, you know, from when you first introduce your baby to solids, and it goes all the way up to toddler and family meals at the end of the book.
No, we've got him already eating fast food, double cheeseburgers.
Perfect.
Right? We want to start him early, build up his immunity. Yeah, make sure he's not allergic. That's what I think anyway. but you also have created recipes and meals that you can cook with your child, which I think is so sweet. Right. So for people watching who have young children who want to, as you put it on your website, make them sous chefs and bring them into the mix, I think that's so adorable. Talk about that.
Yeah, so first of all, in the last chapter of the baby food book, the last section is actually family meals, because a lot of times what happens with parents is that they end up cooking like 20 different things for different family members. You know, one kid doesn't like spinach and one kid doesn't like beans, and so you end up cooking like different things. So the goal of the book is to try to get away from that and just cook one meal for the whole family. And we've kind of been doing that with Luca. He pretty much eats whatever we're eating every night for dinner, and I just break it up into little pieces and give it to him. But getting your kids involved in the actual cooking process is one of the best tips that I give to parents about how to avoid having picky eaters, because that's another thing people ask me about all the time. You know, my kid is picky. How do I avoid that? And you know, you want to expose them to a whole bunch of different foods from the time that they're babies. You know, the more you expose them to early on, the more likely they will be to develop a better palate, a more diverse palate, and eat better as they get older. But also, if you get them involved in the actual cooking process, where they're, you know, if you don't feel comfortable with them holding a knife, that's fine. You can just have them, you know, stirring things, or teach them how to crack an egg. Then they have like a sense of pride, and they really are interested. You know, when the dish is done, they're proud of it. They want to show it off. They want to try it. So my daughter Sienna, she cooks with me all the time. She loves it.
So cute. That's wonderful. I love that. And I want to talk about the meals that you made. I think, you know, because of the way the world is right now, I got to at least ask you one COVID-19 question. We have to. Sure. You're a doctor, and you know, I'm guessing you're seeing some patients with the disease. From your perspective as a doctor, as an ER doc, how has it been for you? Have there been a ton of patients? Have they been really sick? What has your experience been with this?
So so we are getting, I work in Coral Springs, and we are getting cases every day. But the good news is that we have not been overwhelmed. I trained in New York City. My husband, Pete, who's also an ER doctor, we trained together in New York City. So when this all started, we saw what our friends were going through in New York in the ERs, and it was very scary. So we were all kind of preparing for the worst here. And the good news is that, our hospital stocked up well. So many people donated, masks and gowns and gloves and things like that. And so many restaurants have been so generous donating meals. Everyone kind of like prepared really well. So we have been getting patients, but we've been able to manage the number of patients. And the other thing is that in general, the volume in the ER has actually been on the low side because everyone else is kind of staying at home.
Right.
I think a lot of people are scared to come to the ER during this time. A lot of people are turning to other options like telemedicine, appointments with their primary doctors or going to urgent care. The part that worries us a little bit are the people who are actually very sick and are still too scared to come to the ER. So we are seeing people who are coming in sick because they're afraid of coming to the ER. But in general, things have been going okay, and I feel like we were prepared.
How do you feel about the movement now to open up the world again?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we're all all the ER doctors I know, we're all a little cautious because the truth is nobody really knows, what's going to happen. We have to open at some point, and we have to be prepared for a little surge in patients when that does happen. So we're prepared for it.
We have a question. We're going to get to some full-on quarantine meals and such in a few minutes, but a question is, what are some of your go-to quarantine snacks? What are you snacking on in your house?
Snacks. Let's see. That's a good question. I have been doing. I've actually been trying to eat well. So it's as I'm sure it's really easy to not eat healthy during quarantine.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been trying to eat well. So I've been making like large batches of healthy things, like healthy muffins and things like that. I have a mini muffin tray, mini muffin pan, and my daughter will pretty much eat anything that's in the shape of a muffin. So, so I make a lot of like muffins because that's like a good way that you can sneak fruits and veggies.
You just throw like a kale broccoli muffin concoction together, pretty much.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Large batches of soups and things like that because you can eat it over several days. Hummus is one of my go-tos. I love getting like the different flavor. I make my own hummus, or there's so many options at the store. Different flavored hummus with cucumbers, turkey, things like that. I love try to do as many veggies, protein, all of that as I can.
If you, it's funny, food has been the one thing that I have discovered, I guess, during quarantine, like the one skill that I'm working on a little bit. That's been my thing, in large part because we watch a lot of Food Network competition shows, which are so much fun, right?
Yep.
Right.
That I was on. Yep.
It's so fun. Anytime you put a running clock counting down for anything, it just becomes fun. Yeah. So here's my question. If you could, again, compete again, let's say, and you could make any one meal on earth to wow the judges, what is your go-to? What's your go-to meal?
I might have to choose the recipe that kind of started the whole thing for me back in I think it was like 2007. It was a dish called spanakopita lasagna. And it was, the idea behind it was supposed to be a combination of an Italian lasagna. My husband is Italian. His favorite is Italian food. And then a Greek dish called spanakopita. Do you know what that is? It's like a Greek, spinach pie with like feta cheese, and it's got a nice phyllo dough crust on the top, so it's nice and crispy. So it's basically a layered lasagna with layers of spinach in it. And instead of a tomato sauce, it has a white bechamel sauce. And on top of the entire lasagna, I do a crispy phyllo dough crust. So when you cut into the lasagna, you're cutting through like this crispy dough on the top. Not one of my healthiest recipes, but it's definitely like very decadent. And people used to ask me to make that dish all the time because that was the first time I was on a TV show was for that dish. So I would have to go back to the original one.
But I think if I run to your house,
yes,
to eat it and then run back home, I've burned off enough calories to justify eating it.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, keep the questions coming. We've got Dr. Sonali Ruder. Okay, we got a question right here. Again, if you're just tuning in now, she's an ER doc. She's the foodie physician. She's an expert in medicine and an expert in food. And she actually has some recipes that she's going to share with you in a moment. Here's a question from Brent. My son is 9 years old and has a lot of stomach aches and constipation. What are some good gut health foods for kids?
Good health. So, 70 to 80% of our immune system is actually in our gut. So, probiotics and foods that have probiotics in them are very popular right now, basically. You can buy probiotic pills at the pharmacy, or you can kind of get them the natural way. So, the main things that come to mind are Greek yogurt, kefir, kombucha. Now you want to, when you buy like Greek yogurt, for example, you want to make sure it just says live active bacterial cultures on it, because that's what the probiotics are. Probiotics are basically healthy bacteria that populate your gut. We all have good bacteria and bad bacteria in our gut. And when the bad bacteria kind of outgrows the good bacteria, that's when you kind of get a lot of gastrointestinal issues and things like that. So we want to help support and supplement the good bacteria. So, I started my daughter, Sienna, eating Greek yogurt from the time she was a baby. Like you can actually introduce yogurt to babies very early. Before you even introduce regular cow's milk, you can introduce yogurt and cheese. There's so many recipes where you can actually just add yogurt to them. Like even the banana bread that I'm going to be showing later today, I add Greek yogurt to it just for an extra hit of probiotics and protein. It also, is high in protein and calcium. So anything that naturally has probiotics in it is a good option. Or like I said, you can always also buy probiotic pills.
Great answer. Thank you very much. It's funny. I was thinking about when would be a good time to bring the real star of the show into the show. And, you set me up perfectly talking about babies and food for babies. So here he is.
How
Here's
cute.
the man.
Big boy.
Yeah. He takes after his mom on the hygiene. Yeah. Here he is. Here's Miles. You having fun, buddy? Want to eat some Greek yogurt?
Yeah.
Maybe later. Well, there he is.
My book, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get him a copy. Yeah, he's a great reader. He'll read it cover to cover. It's amazing. Yeah. All right, let's get to some food. You were gracious enough to provide us with some meals. Take it away.
Yeah. So I decided to have a little fun of it and kind of search, look online and see what people are searching these days, in quarantine. And I found a recipe, which started off as a video in South Korea for something called whipped coffee. And this video and this recipe has basically gone viral. And I think it's because we're missing the coffee shop Starbucks experience. We're all kind of at home making coffee at home, but this is a fun coffee drink that you can make with just a couple of ingredients, and it kind of makes you feel like you're having a fancy, latte or macchiato at your local coffee shop. But so basically all you need is instant coffee. So that's the one thing you have to go out and buy if you don't have it. Instant coffee, or I actually have instant espresso powder. So it's the same thing. The espresso will just be a little bit stronger. And in a bowl, you're just going to take equal parts. So I use 2 tablespoons of espresso powder, sugar, and hot water. That's it. 3 ingredients. And you dissolve it in a bowl, and it just looks like brown coffee. And then you're going to take a hand mixer, just like, what you would use to make a cake, and you're going to beat it for about 2 minutes. Now you can use a whisk, but after about a minute, you'll feel like your arm's going to fall off probably. So I use a hand mixer, and it takes 1 to 2 minutes. And what you get is, can you see this?
Yeah.
You get this beautiful, brown, fluffy foam. And this is just from whisking those 3 ingredients together. So what you do is you take a cup and you just fill it with milk. This is just milk. And if you want it hot, you can do it hot, or I put ice in here because I'm going to make an ice drink. And if I go like this, can you see, or do I have to tilt?
That's good. Yep. Perfect.
Okay. And so you got your glass with the milk, and then you're just going to take this delicious coffee foam, and you're just going to spoon it on top. Oh, thank you, Pete.
I love the production value that you're bringing to this.
I got my camera.
Well done, Pete.
Thank you.
All right. And you can, feel free to pile on as much of this as you want. I mean, it looks delicious just like this, but if you want a mocha version, you could drizzle some chocolate sauce on, and then put your straw in, and make sure, of course, you have to kind of stir it up a little.
And I think if you wanted to, you could there's probably an adult version of this beverage too.
Oh my gosh, totally. Put a little Kahlua or some Baileys in there.
Yeah, just drop in a little Baileys. Never hurt anybody.
But as you can see, yeah, I mean, it's so good, and it looks like, it looks like something you would get at like a fancy coffee shop. So
yeah, the presentation's great.
Yeah, I could definitely see why this recipe has gone viral.
Well, when I mentioned it to my wife, she like, yeah, to your point, she's like, oh, everyone's talking about that. That's the thing now.
Yeah. It's super popular. I can see it because it's really easy to make. You can even, if you don't have a cake mixer, if you have like a little I have like a little latte foamer that I also use to mix like baby formula. You probably have something like that. You can use something like that. It's super easy to make, and it's fun.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're drinking that, and what are we eating? What are we eating with it?
So now, okay, I'm just gonna tilt this a tiny bit. There we go. So then, when I was looking up what else people are searching, comfort foods keeps coming up. Like people want comfort food, especially things like meatloaf was the top one, meatballs. Not so much chicken, because some people have been having trouble finding chicken in the grocery stores. It's been selling out a lot for some reason, but ground meats in general, readily available. Ground beef is also something you can easily store in your freezer and defrost whenever you need it. So I always have either ground turkey or ground beef in my freezer. So I made meatloaves, and this is actually from my baby food cookbook. These are my barbecue cheddar mini meatloaves. And what I love about this recipe is I make them in individual meatloaves instead of making, the traditional meatloaf. You make it in like a big meatloaf pan. What happens with that is, first of all, it takes forever to cook when it's in a big pan like that. But also the glaze that you put on top, it just kind of gets the top. The edges kind of stay soggy. You don't get the nice glaze on the whole thing. So when I make the meatloaf mixture, what I do is I divide it up into small, like kind of football shaped loaves, and I put them on a sheet pan, and then I brush the sauce or the glaze all over the whole thing. So when it bakes, they only take 22 minutes to bake, so it's really fast. But also you get that delicious crust like all around the meat. And the secret ingredient with this is, there's two secret ingredients. The first one is barbecue sauce, because who doesn't like barbecue sauce? But I stir in with the ground beef and the breadcrumb and the eggs, which are the typical meatloaf ingredients. Just put in a couple of tablespoons of your favorite jarred barbecue sauce. You don't even have to make your own. You do a couple of tablespoons in the meat mixture, and then you also brush it over the top at the end, so you kind of get a double hit of flavor. And then the other thing I put in is cheese. I just cut up like cheddar cheese, small pieces of it, and mix it into the meatloaf mixture. So then when you bake it and you eat it and you cut into it, you get these little pockets of like gooey cheese, and it's so So when I make, this is a hit with kids and adults. Like everybody who tries this recipe loves it. So
well, I think anytime you can use the expression pockets of gooey cheese to describe a food, exactly. Who wouldn't love pockets of gooey cheese?
Exactly. And also the good thing about this is it's like it's instant portion control. That's another thing, by the way, about healthy eating is portion control is a big part of it, and these are, for a pound of meat, I made 4 mini meatloaves, so 1/4 pound each, and you just control the amount of cheese that's in there, and it's just enough, you need just enough to get that flavor. You don't need to go crazy with it. And
just enough to where you still would love some dessert, something to satisfy that sweet tooth.
Exactly, which brings me to the #1 most searched recipe in America. Do you know what it is?
Well, I know what it is, yes.
No, it is. Okay, yeah, we talked about it.
Right.
So the most, it actually varies by country. It's very interesting. But in America, the most commonly searched recipe is banana bread. And so I made my version of banana bread. I think banana bread is so popular because, again, it's a comfort food. We kind of, like a lot of us grew up eating it. It's easy to make. You don't need any fancy equipment. You don't need a stand mixer or even a hand mixer. You can just mix it in a bowl with a wooden spoon. And we all usually have bananas that are just kind of getting old on the counter. So it's a great way to use them up. The banana bread will be even better and sweeter the more brown the bananas are. So this is my banana bread. It's actually banana flax bread. And to make it look extra pretty, what I do is I slice a whole banana and I lay the banana on top of the banana bread when it bakes, so it kind of gives it that cool look. But like I was saying before, in response to the person that asked the question, I actually add Greek yogurt into the batter. It has flour, regular flour, and then I also use whole wheat flour just to try to incorporate some whole grains in here. And Greek yogurt, which gives it, that extra boost of protein, probiotics. It also keeps it nice and moist. And lots and lots of bananas, because the bananas add moisture and flavor too. And because this is for Sienna, I promised her this one. She's a chocoholic. This one's got a lot of chocolate chips in it too. But you can leave it plain. You can leave the chocolate chips out, or you can use nuts. Sometimes I use chopped walnuts in there, or pecans are really good too.
Couldn't you use both? Couldn't you go chocolate and nuts?
Oh yeah, totally, of course.
Come on.
Of course, I know. And then flaxseed. I actually forgot to mention that I also put some flaxseed in here, again, just for, it's another good source of omega-3 fatty acids, actually, which I mentioned earlier. And you don't even really taste it. It just kind of gets mixed up with the flour and the other dry ingredients. So banana bread can be stored on the counter for a couple of days, or you can store it in the fridge for about a week. And it freezes really well. I think that's another reason why banana bread is so popular. You can freeze a whole loaf, or if you want to make it easier, you can slice it and then wrap the slices individually and freeze those. So then you can just pull it out for breakfast, or, quick snack whenever you want.
And I love it. And I love our viewers, because I love their questions, including, can you add booze to that too? Thank you, Peter.
Huh. Yeah, you can add booze to anything. Why not?
Why not? Yes. Yeah.
Why not?
Right. All the rules go out the window. Yeah. Okay.
Banana bread.
Banana bread Foster. So joining us, if you're just tuning in now, we've spent the past half hour with Dr. Sonali Ruder. She's an ER doctor in Coral Springs, Florida. She's also the Foodie Physician. She just dropped 3 awesome recipes on us. So this, I think, is a great time for you to tell everybody where they can find you if they want to get recipes, if they want to learn more about you. Where do they go?
Sure. Yeah. So my website is thefoodiephysician.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, everything. And then my cookbooks are, you can find them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, basically wherever books are sold. It's Natural Pregnancy Cookbook and Natural Baby Food. But like I said, both books are actually appropriate for everybody. They're kind of geared towards healthy eating for everybody.
And isn't it great to be able to say wherever books are sold? I just think that's such a cool thing that authors can say, oh, you can find my book pretty much wherever books are sold.
Exactly. I love saying that. Thank you for asking.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, this has been awesome. I love talking to you. It's always a pleasure. Next time in person, so I can eat the food, please.
I hope so. Yeah, definitely. I'll bring you some. And I definitely have to send you my book, because Baby Miles will be starting on solids soon.
I know, it's coming up.
And then things are going to get a whole lot messier, Dave. Just remember,
I heard.
Warned you.
I am fine changing the diapers now, but I think a couple of months from now, I might opt out if possible.
That's right. Yes, they change color depending on what they eat.
Gonna need that booze quickly. Yeah. It's so great to talk to you. Please say hi to Pete and your family, and we will chat again soon in person. Thank you, Sonali, for joining us today on Zoom from Miles' Room.
This is so much fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. And for all of you watching, we're going to have another episode tomorrow at 4 o'clock.